Welcome to another episode of In the Kitchen with Wynn, where I have candid and unedited conversations with food founders and entrepreneurs about their journey and what they've learned along the way. Today, my guest is Ellen Lee, author of the cookbook, Food That Anchors, Recipes for People on the Go. Welcome, Ellen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Wynn.
So, Alan, can you tell us and my listeners, like, what inspired you to write your cookbook? I love it. I love the way it looks and the messaging behind it.
So many factors. Actually, I fought against it for about 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've been a professional organizer for about 7 years, and I
Wow.
used to do these in-person workshops before
Mm-hmm.
COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And in the workshop, I would actually highlight local businesses that provide services that
Mm-hmm.
help eliminate stress from our busy day-to-day activity. So
Right.
people that have meal prep a service, and people that offer in-home massage, and even just different naturopathic products and services.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I couldn't find a sponsor to provide the breakfast and the lunch. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought, oh, I'll just do it. I'll do something simple. Literally just made food that I eat
Mm-hmm.
in my on the go lifestyle.
Right.
And at the end of the workshop, the video testimonials from the attendees were all talking about the food. And to be honest, I was a little offended. I was like, what about the content of the workshop? That was so impactful. But yeah, I had to pause and really just think like, okay, give the people what they want.
Right. And
But
I'm definitely one of those people. I always pay attention to the food.
right, and there was definitely a glimpse of divine encounter where I heard God said, don't be selfish with your gift. If you know how to do something well, share it with the world, and that nothing is too small to share, because you never know who you're impacting and how it's actually affecting other people's lives. So after I heard that, I was like, no, there's no way that these are just simple. It was sandwiches and salads, and I'm like, everybody knows how to make that. Like, no, and I had all these excuses running through my head. But throughout the 3 years, I kid you not, every time I see cookbooks, I hear people talk about
Right.
never ignoring their dreams. There's always a nudge that you're supposed to write a cookbook. You're supposed to write a cookbook.
Right.
And
Right.
then finally, I was like, all right, fine, God, if I'm supposed to write a cookbook, let's do it.
I
And
love
yeah.
it. I love it. And I do agree with you. I would say one of the things that I had to learn as well is that things that are easy for me is not necessarily natural easy for other people, but other people want to learn, right? They want to learn and they want to give it a go. And so I think people take for granted some of the the natural gifts that we have sometimes. And so I do think that whenever have like self-doubt or feel like no one's going to want to listen to this podcast or no one's going to want to learn how to cook this, I just think about, like, okay, if I can just help one person because other people helped me, and that helps take away the fear of like, oh, no one's going to want to do this, or no one's going
Yeah.
to be interested in what I have to say.
So true. And I feel like there's that fine line between like false humility
Mhm.
and just selfishness. That, okay, if we're being gifted, like if we've cultivated, whether it's out of like necessity that
Mhm.
I had to cook very efficiently, or it's just a passion, either way, I benefited from it. And if it's good enough for me, why wouldn't it be good enough for somebody else who also has similar busy lifestyle?
Right. I am definitely with you with people on the go.
Yeah.
I am always on the go. And I agree. I think I've learned to prioritize eating healthy. And so it's like sometimes eating healthy and eating well is more simple than eating things that are more complicated and
Mhm.
unhealthy with 20 different ingredients.
Right, right. And I feel like just being, having the mindset as an organizer, I see
Mhm.
things in priorities and categories. And so combining that with just a love for food, it seemed like a natural outcome for me to cook efficiently because, the space is organized, my thought process is organized. And so just marrying a little planning
Mhm.
and a little love for food, and bam, you could just have simple rest. They don't have to be complicated, and
Mhm.
you can eat well.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to a book that you put out for organizing because I I would say that is one of my weak points. I love things organized, but
Yeah,
there's just something missing in my brain about getting things organized. Like it gets very overwhelming for me. So if I
yeah.
have someone organized for me, I can maintain it. So
Yes.
I am voting for the next book to be on organization. So anyway, so Alan, tell me a little bit like, so what were the first steps that you did? Like if you're, once you decided, okay, that's it. My calling has been to write this book. I was meant to
Yeah.
write this cookbook. What was some of the first steps that you took?
Every time I ate something that I made, I was like, oh, this is so good. I had these self dialogue, just between me and myself. I was like, okay. And then I write down the recipe. I was like, okay, what did I actually do there? And then it slowly became, instead of a hindsight thing, I became more conscientious while I cook. I was like, okay, I didn't just put a pinch of salt there. I did cook like a grandma, a pinch here, a
Same,
dash
it was
there.
same. Mm-hmm.
I realized like, no, I need to measure everything. So in the process, I became more mindful of, how I season my food, and even the process of what, the order of execution, which is really key in
Right.
saving time. Why I was able to get in and out of the kitchen in 60 minutes or less, which is really all the recipes in Food That Anchors.
Mm-hmm.
It's staggering the steps. The things that take the longest, I always execute first
Right.
versus as as you watch cooking shows, it seems like things are already prepped for them and they just need to like go through the flow. I just start to like pay more attention to how I
Mhm.
stagger the steps and how to multitask. Like while the water is boiling, what am I doing? Oh
Right.
yeah, I'm chopping and doing all the prep, and or I'm washing dishes. Like,
Yep.
so just start documenting everything and then taking pictures of the end result. That, hey, does it actually look appetizing?
Mhm.
Because we eat with our eyes first, right? So these became just a ton of rough notes. But I do use the app Trello to keep myself organized. So
Okay.
I just put in my phone, my Trello app, all the recipes.
Awesome. I love that. And so what would you say, like how long did the cookbook take you from beginning to end?
Honestly, 10 months. It was, I was
Wow.
actually in part of a business acceleration program. And
Uh-huh.
so I used the cookbook as my project, as my commitment
Wow.
project. So if if I wasn't in that atmosphere, I'm not sure if I'd be that motivated to find and hire people. So every week I had different goals to meet, from
Mhm.
finding food photographers, um, publisher, editors, and all that. So it's a lot of artificial self-inflicted pressure,
But
but
we
it
need
works.
that,
It
right?
works. Yeah.
It does work.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest struggle of any entrepreneur in any business is that you have to create your own pressure
Yeah.
to get to the goal that you want. You don't have
Yeah.
a manager, emailing
Hmm.
and calling you anymore, which is the beauty
Right.
of it, but
Right.
it's also it takes a lot of self-discipline.
Yeah. I did have an accountability partner. So I credit a lot to him because I knew that phone call was coming, that if I didn't fulfill what I said I would, that wouldn't be a pleasant call.
I
So
love that. And so was
yeah.
your accountability partner like a personal friend, or was it a business partner,
Um,
or
it was through the program.
through the program?
We yeah, we partnered up with somebody that they had chosen for us.
That's awesome.
So it would so we wouldn't be picking someone who we might have like personal rapport with, and you tend to give each other a little bit more grace, I find, if
Right.
you're already friends, and empathy kicks in, and you just
Totally.
yeah. But because this is someone that I like, we had no friendship, we didn't know each other,
Mhm.
um it was very effective.
I love that. I need to find a accountability partner.
Yeah.
Um, so and then what would you say your biggest challenge was?
Navigating the complicated world of publishing. There are so many ways to get your books out there.
Mhm.
and and I think also the sticker shock. So I guess to summarize it is the business side of
Mhm.
publishing a book. The cost of, I mean, first of all, cookbook is very visual dominant. So you don't skim cost on photography at
Mhm.
all. But even knowing that, the cost of printing it, you can't skip, there's just no corners to cut,
Right.
from making it to printing it, every aspect. So by the time you get to the end
Mhm.
of deciding how to price your book,
Mhm.
it was very sobering that I was thinking like, okay, there's one J.K. Rowling in the world, but at the same time, that the honest truth is, just because my background as a corporate person, that not everything has to make business sense in the way that I used to know, as far as
Exactly.
like profit margin goes.
Right.
And like, I had to remind myself, I didn't write this cookbook to become a millionaire. I
Right.
wrote this to help another person eliminate overwhelm from their life and to eat well. But most of all is to eat well so you can share a meal with somebody else, create that connection around the dinner table,
Right.
and not be isolated, whether it's with like drive-through meals or, whatever it is that keep us isolated. There's nothing like creating that connection by sharing a meal together. So I had to go back to really the original why,
Right.
and still move forward with sound business decision, but really understanding that combination, that how to juggle that.
Absolutely. I can imagine that was so difficult to navigate and to make those decisions. And so say, how did it feel when you got your first order? Like how many books did you order like once everything was said and
Oh
done?
my goodness. I remember when pre-order opened,
Mhm.
I had no idea that the floodgates, but I think I was just like still in a just going through the motion. I'm like, okay, this day I got to do the pre-order and I got to do the marketing campaign, da, 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 da. And then the orders coming in, I was like, oh, people are
Wow.
buying it. I'm like,
That's
okay,
amazing.
this is real. I remember the first name that I didn't recognize because most of them were my friends.
I feel you when I get a order through my website and it's like out of state and it's someone I don't know. I'm like, oh my
Right?
gosh, it's working.
Love my friends, but one name I didn't recognize. I was just like,
That's so funny.
Mhm.
And so do you have an ebook version of your book?
I do. There's an ebook version for people who love to use iPads.
Mhm.
And that was another one of those decisions like, okay, I love the tactile feel of a
Yes.
book,
I
especially
like
like a
paper.
cookbook.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I realized I was like, okay, again, I don't know how everyone cooks. Some
Right.
people would love the digital version. So there is yeah, the ebook version on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Awesome. Awesome. And so what advice do you have for people that are thinking about writing a cookbook? And I think I've shared with you, I'm actually in the process of writing a cookbook. And so this conversation is really helping me. And it's because it is scary. And I feel you on the accountability thing because I have so much on my plate. So sometimes it gets put on the back burner, but I just, it's something I've always wanted to do. I've came up with this idea over 3 years ago. And so just taking that first step and getting the motivation to keep going into another world of unknown is scary. So what kind of advice do you have for us?
Yeah, I think just first know the why behind it,
Mhm.
and like and what if you have to put on a post-it note in front of your desk, do it, because it's so easy to like talk ourselves out of something crazy. Um like I mean, like as if your life isn't like very full already, you know,
Yeah.
being a mom and an entrepreneur and all those different roles. So your why has to be so evident and etched in, and honestly an accountability partner with a set check-in date and hour each week is
Right.
so helpful, and together you can come up with your the progression of how you want to move forward, and it doesn't have to be big. I remember I first committed to, oh, okay, I'm going to write 10 recipes every week, and
Mm,
so it forced me to even think about what I'm cooking. Even if I'm making a sandwich and it's like the most delicious sandwich, I'm writing that down.
right. And that's where I struggle with because I can just throw something together so
Mhm.
fast, right? I'm just
Right.
like, oh, I got this in the fridge, I got this. I'm just, throwing it all together to get out the door. I think that's my biggest challenge is taking the time to write down the recipes and measuring, I'm
Mm,
kind of more of like the right brain side sometimes,
right.
the creative side when I'm cooking. And so I got to tap into the other side of my brain and measure and write things down.
Yeah. And if you could just commit to even doing like 50% of what you make, that okay,
Yeah.
I'm actually going to slow down and measure.
Yes.
Honestly, in the beginning though, I wrote everything on a little post-it. I have like a notepad and a pen by
Mhm.
the stove, and I
Yeah.
just jot down the ingredients, and I kind of go back and guesstimate. I, and to know like you don't have to get it right, because when you're actually creating when you're actually cooking each recipe for the food photography portion, you're going to be testing it out.
Right. Exactly.
um, so
That's
you do have checks and balance along the way, so you don't have to get it right the first time.
That's true. And I tell people too when I'm like making something, I say like this is like a strong framework because everyone
Mhm.
has, like I don't like to have a lot of salt in my food.
Yeah.
So if they need more salt, add more salt. So it's like, it's the ingredients, it's the methodology, it's
Mhm.
merging all the different flavors together,
Mhm.
but I think that it's important to teach people to kind of learn how to cook with their own taste buds, right?
Mhm.
Like going with
Yeah.
the flow, like, oh, if I don't have this one ingredient, it's not going to be like, oh, I can't make this completely.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of which, another good thing to do is have a taste party. I did that. I had like a bunch of friends over. They thought we are just gonna have brunch. They didn't know I was testing all my recipes on them, but it made it fun. I
It
got
does.
feedback,
Yeah.
and then that kind of set a trajectory to like, oh, okay, these are the people I want to feed, and also I want to empower to cook,
Yeah.
and this is their feedback to me. So it just it made it fun.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because that's the whole part of the journey, right? It's you're not always going to love every aspect of the journey or all the tasks and things that you have to do, but to make it fun and to know that you know, you have this big goal that you want to accomplish, but just have fun along the way. So
Yeah,
it helps when things don't go your way. I've learned in my
absolutely.
so. And so what is next for you, Ellen? Are you planning to write another book, another cookbook?
I am documenting more recipe, even as we speak, and I call them legacy recipes. I am
Oh,
from
yeah.
Taiwan. I
Uh-huh.
grew up in Taiwan, and I miss the street food we have. I love the recipes that have been passed down from my mom.
Mhm.
We eat different things we heal our bodies through food, really, growing up.
Right.
So whatever it is that we experience, and even holidays, we have specific foods for specific holidays.
Mhm.
So these are the things I want to pass on to my kids. I don't have kids yet,
Mhm.
but I figure if I don't document them,
Right.
being an Asian American here in the United States, my
Mhm.
kids are not going to experience what I had, and that was such a precious part of my heritage.
It's so true. I love
Mm.
Taiwanese food. So I grew
Mm.
up in Cupertino. So
Yeah.
we had a lot of Taiwanese restaurants and bakeries. And I mean, it's
Oh
so,
yeah.
so
So
I'm
good.
excited for that book.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. And so that's going to be your big thing. And I know you're a professional organizer. Are you planning to write an organizing book, or you kind of you enjoy the cooking aspect as far as like being an author?
I am Well, never say never, because
Mhm.
I feel like there I have dabbled with it. I put out courses on organizing,
Uh-huh.
um like 7 days to stress-free moving was like my my flagship thing. Things like but then I realized that everyone is so different. And I don't want to discourage people from living an authentic life just because they can't follow a blueprint. And I find myself changing the way I organize too, the way I even teach it is a lot more custom now, because I hear more the reason why it's hard for people, and so I tweaks. I'll give you. Do we have time for an example?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely.
I so I typically, like, for example, organizing a kitchen.
Hmm.
I like to think of your function, your foot traffic in that kitchen. And so your utensils will be near the stove, like the kitchen utensils, the cooking gadgets will be near the stove. To me, that makes sense. So you don't have to go too far when
Hmm.
you're, hovering around the stove. But
Right.
I had this client, she needed that drawer closest to the stove to be, I don't have junk drawers, I have grace drawers. So she needed to be a grace drawer because it's on her way to another section of the home and out to her ADU. So she needed the keys, the whatever.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay, that might present that's not, the blueprint per
Right.
se, but it fits her lifestyle, which
Right.
is to me more important
Mhm.
than my guidelines, because I don't live there. She does. And so
That's
we
that's
yeah, we shifted. We just pivoted. It's like, okay, let me put your cooking utensils at a, plan B location
Mhm.
that's still very convenient, but now you have a grace drawer on, taking the whole house into context. So
Right.
I just thinking of that kind of example, I think it wouldn't be fair to create a guideline, but I do believe there is wisdom in creating some kind of framework to help people understand that, hey, what's most important to my life, and
Yeah.
how can I create a system and order that helps me live that way.
Right. No, I think that's so important. And I think it's just, we can learn all the different techniques and tools, but we have to adapt it to what makes sense for us.
Yes.
And and I feel like that wisdom is very deep in entrepreneurship. It's so hard to see, other companies, other founders or entrepreneurs on LinkedIn or Instagram, like doing all these different things. And it may work for them, but we don't want to kill ourselves trying to do what everyone else is doing if it doesn't work with our family dynamic. And
Mhm.
everyone has a different challenge and
Yeah.
different resources and different dynamics. So I think that I love that that thought process of just working with the flow, being authentic, doing what works for you. And
Mhm.
like whether it's, the organization and also just I think in life and in your home and just in business in general. So
Right.
I love that. I think
Mhm.
that's a big takeaway because it's so easy to get distracted of
Yeah,
whatever
right.
you're doing.
And get into the rut of comparison because I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like I've done that for so long that hey, my pictures don't look like this other organizer's picture, or my food don't look as Instagram worthy as some, and
Mm,
so you end up in this cycle of paralysis of comparing with other people. And so that's why I think, yeah, I love coaching. I
mhm,
do love like coaching people through like where they're stuck.
mhm.
Um, but I definitely want everyone, my goal is always to help them discover who they are, what works for them, whether it's in food,
Mhm.
like we talked about a little bit earlier, that we have different taste buds and preferences. So we can give someone a recipe that tastes great to us, but always encourage them to modify accordingly.
Yes. I love that. And it's like the encouragement to do it your way, right?
Mhm.
There's no right or wrong way. These are
Right.
all structures and it's part of a story. It's everyone's story that, like your cookbook is your story that you give out to the world and just learning from that and people can use that as a framework, but make it their own journey and their own story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I absolutely love that, and I think we have to end with that because that is just so good, and it definitely really inspired me, and it's a good reminder, to just keep being authentic and doing things the best to our abilities and doing it the way that works for us. So thank
Yes.
you so much, Ellen, for being on the show.
Thank
Oh,
you.
but first off, before we leave, can you let us know where we can buy your book?
Yes, there are several ways. You can go on Amazon, you can
Mhm.
go on Barnes and Noble, you can, if you're local in San Diego, you can stop by one of my favorite places in Encinita called Good Anya. They have
Oh,
delicious food, an amazing market on site, which I see
mhm.
Wynn's Kitchen stuff in there too.
Yay.
And also on my website, foodthatanchors.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I love supporting locals and I actually have been wanting to go there to try out their food. So I will
You have
definitely
to.
check that out at Good
Yeah.
On You. But thank you so much again, Ellen, for being on the show. It was so nice meeting you. And I mean, I feel like we can geek out about food and cooking forever. So
Yes.
until next time, I might be calling you to come and taste some of my recipes.
Please, that would be so fun. I'll be
All
your guinea pig anytime.
right. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Wynn.
If you want to buy Ellen's book, Food That Anchors, remember you can do it through Amazon on her website or in San Diego, go to Good Anya and also Barnes and Nobles. Until next time, bye.
Bye.